Okay, we're rolling.
Okay, this is an interview at the Cambridge Public Library, the 16th of April 2004, approximately 9:30 a.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Okay. John Philip Derrenbacher, Bronx, New York, February 2nd, 1922.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
Well, of course, 8 years of grammar school, 4 years of high school, 2 years of college at City College of New York, which I got a degree, not a main degree, but
associate degree?
Associate degree, right, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember where you were and your reaction when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
I can remember it. In fact, I was walking along Castle Hill Avenue with my friends Joe Ott and Walter Malone, who was my wife's cousin, and that's where we heard about it, and we couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
Enlisted.
Why did you decide to enlist, and why did you select the Navy?
Well, I thought I would like to become a Navy airman, you know, and that was the main. That was sort of the main reason I wanted to become the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Had you ever flown before?
No.
You just were interested in aviation?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
when did you enlist? Well, you have 8/42.
August 4th, yeah.
Okay.
Right, that's when I was sworn in.
Yes, okay. Where did you go for your basic training?
Newport, Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm. What kind of basic training did you receive? Could you describe it?
Well, it was at that time of the year where they really wanted, I guess, numbers, and it was only a 5-week camp instead of the usual, I don't know how, maybe 2 months or so.
Yes. Right.
So, and right from boot camp, went to different tests I had taken, and I guess I could put down a few things, and they figured radio school, aviation for me in Florida, Naval Air Station down there.
Okay.
Okay. So you were, I noticed that in the form you filled out you went to radio school in Florida and also gunnery school?
Yes, in Yellowwater, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
which was very close to...
so you were going to be on a plane where you would be a gunner?
Right.
In the rear seat?
Yes.
Did you ever do much flying? When did you do your flying? And
I didn't do any flying until I guess they needed more men to fill in the squadron, and so I was in a cashew outfit in Norfolk.
Could you explain what that means?
It was only about, I was only with it about two months,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't do much of anything. They were just, until I got the call then for
What was the holding
the
area? Casual?
No, it was a very busy place, but there was just nothing that I can recall being of any help to them at all at the time.
Okay.
In fact, I used to spend half my time in the library on a base. But then the bombing squadron, VB-8, they needed more men to be their rear seat people in the radio. And myself and this fella, Bob Glass, we joined them. And when we did get there, there was quite a few of the men that I had already known. They had taken a different way of getting there. They went from some place in Florida immediately to the squadron, whereas it took me a little long time to get to the squadron.
Was that Pensacola, Florida?
No, Yellowwater, Florida.
Okay.
What squadron was that you were saying?
Bombing Squadron 8.
Okay. Now, what kind of planes did you train on?
We trained in the SPD. I think that was the Dauntless.
And is that the type of plane you flew in the Pacific?
No, then we went to the SB-2C Helldiver.
Now, can you compare the two planes, how you felt about them?
Well, most of us, we liked the SPD a lot because, for one thing, we had our own stick in the back of the plane. And you know, when we could face forward, there was a stick. The pilot, he was using his up there, and I would watch mine back here. And one of the things we liked about it, I remember when we were in Creed's field, one of the pilots in the dive, he really blocked out, and they were getting for a crash, except the radio man was in his he was able to pull the joystick back, and the pilot finally came to. Otherwise it would have been without that stick. So we figured that was a safety figure for us, but the new plane didn't have a joystick.
So in other ways, they were pretty similar then.
Yes, except for that. But except we carried a very heavy bomb load compared to the Dauntless. In fact, the Marines used the SPD a lot more in the South Pacific.
Because of the bomb load.
And the maneuverability, I think, too. Of course, the SB-2C could carry a longer distance and everything.
Okay. How long was it before you went over to the Pacific? Or were you assigned to a carrier right away, or?
We were supposed to be on the Intrepid. In fact, in Norfolk is the first time. I think it was built in Boston, and it came down to Norfolk, and we got on for the shakedown cruise, which meant we went down to Trinidad, and that's when we got our first ribbon because of the American theater, because you are out in dangerous waters. And the shakedown cruise went very well. And then I think we had a week of leave before we, after we came back from Trinidad, we had a week of leave, and then we were going right out to get into action. Well, when we got to the Panama Canal, I forget the names now of each side of the, you know. But anyhow, we had one night stay on the state side, and then we're going over to the other side. And when we were going over, the captain is no longer in charge of the ship in the Panama Canal. they have to have, I forget what they even call him now, but he's in charge. Well, on the carrier, if we could get ice cream, you know, and it was my duty that one time to bring about 6 of them up to the cups, up to the ready room, and all of a sudden there's a junk like this, and I lose half of them, and right in the middle of the canal, general
orders?
General orders comes, you know, stringing through. There's a bunch of black workers along the canal, and they're just looking, I mean, what's going on? Well, anyhow, the pilot, that's what they call it, he never made a turn, and we went straight ahead into a bank, put a big hole in the ship. So we get over to the other end of the canal, and we had to stay there for a fast patch-up for about 2 weeks. And we had a good time, of course, because we had nothing to do. Well, they got us patched up, and we went up to Alameda, California. And there I had to go in regular dry dock. So the weather was so bad out there, I would say we must have been there, well, let's see, we were there for, one thing we liked, we were there for Christmas and New Year's, which we weren't supposed to be. We were supposed to have been in Hawaii by then. And okay, I think we only could fly 2 days because of the weather. So finally, we're on the way to Hawaii, and figure, oh, we're going to land at Pearl Harbor, and all of a sudden, it said, it came over the speakers, all hands that belong to Bombing Squadron 8, get ready to take off, and you're going to go to Maui. Well, the reason was, all that time we weren't doing anything, except having a good time. So we were on Maui, I think, for at least 2 months, and we did plenty of bombing practice there, because the one island which is where the people, you know, what's a terrible disease? In fact, there was a priest out there that used to...
The lepers.
The lepers.
Yes.
Well, that's the island we used to bomb all the time for practice. And then we did night bombing and everything, I mean, practice. Like, and all of a sudden, the Bunker Hill had been out there before the Intrepid, of course. And so their squadron came off, and we went on.
Can I ask you, what was it like the first time that you took off and you landed on a carrier deck?
I was pretty scared. And in fact, my pilot, of course, he had practiced, you know. But when we had landed and got into the ready room, he said, I never should have taken the wave off from the signalman, you know, because where he landed so close to the edge that when I looked out at the, I could see water, and and he said if we had gone a foot more, we would have just collapsed and gone into the water. So after that, he made all good landings.
Now,
That was a safe one, too.
Did you wear a life jacket?
Yes, May West.
Okay, and you also wore a parachute too, right?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, so initially you were in the Intrepid, then you were assigned to the Bunker Hill, so you
Yes.
stayed with the Bunker Hill the rest of the time. Do you know
Right.
about what time you were, when you were assigned to the Bunker Hill?
I could look it up in my, you can look it up in my book right here.
Now, did you stay with the same pilot?
Yes.
So the two
When-
of you stayed together?
Yeah. When we were, say, in the States, I flew with quite a few different pilots. And Jack Webber and myself sort of hit it off, and finally I only stayed with him.
Now, is he still living?
No,
You know?
he got killed, unfortunately. He lived in Chicago. And I heard two things, that robbers attacked it at his home. Another one said he had been out someplace and got killed in a fight. I mean, murdered in a fight, yeah.
Okay. So this happened right after the war then? Or?
Soon after, we had kept in contact by letter. And he got married, and I got married, and both of us had children. We both had 2 children when he was killed like that. And I kept sending Christmas cards, and the wife never answered me. It wasn't until I went to one of the reunions that I had found out what had happened to him. She was, I guess, just so upset, she couldn't,
I noticed looking at your log that something important happened on March 25th, 1944. Something about King Neptune.
Oh, the imperial domain of the Golden Dragon, yeah. Want me to read it out or not?
Well, it's up to you, or you can tell us what happened.
Well, all they tell you is that you are finally a member.
Now, how did you become a member?
I'm trying to, this was on the 180th meridian on the 18th of March, 1944. I forget if that's the rough, it was the Golden Dragon, and down below here on the March 8th was the domain of Neptune Rex. And that's the one, I think, they really put it to you. Like you were...
Do you still carry your card?
I think I have it someplace.
Okay, some still carry them.
Yeah.
Okay. When you went into combat, were most of your missions in support of troops or landings or bombing Japanese, like Turk
Yeah.
and so on, or?
You mean before we started, before we got into action, you mean?
Yes.
Well, we had practice attacks. We had catapult shots instead of, carried live bombs sometimes. Went to training for a while in TBF. That's to know what radar was all about. In fact, it was just the pilot, Horn, and fellow Middleton, and then the instructor, Lieutenant Badger. torpedo bombers that, of course, they were, you could have 3 men in the torpedo bomber. We're out playing, you can only have 2.
Excuse me, when you finally got into combat, where were most of your missions?
Well, most of them at the beginning were right at Palau, and were strictly ships. And on our first attack, naturally, we were scared for the first time. We were going to see the enemy and everything, and I didn't sleep well. In fact, I slept so little that when we were waiting to take off, well, we were in 3 groups. I wasn't in the first group or the second group. I was in the 3rd group. And I think we had, it was either 15 or 12 of our planes. Then, of course, there was a few torpedo bombers, and then the pilots that flew the F-6Fs. And, well, to make a long story short, well, like I say, I hardly slept. Well, when I got up in the ready room, I was sleeping. My pilot come into our room a couple of times to wake me up. And so it wasn't, at Palau it wasn't bad at all, because we didn't have any Air Force, any problems with the Japanese fighters or anything, and we didn't lose anybody. And we were there for 2 days, so we had, those were on the 30th of March and 31st of March.
Did you ever encounter Japanese fighters on any of your missions?
Yes, I was going to come to that later. But when we were going to go out for an attack, our fighter planes would go first. And they would generally clear the air of, well, they also dropped the bomb first. And then the torpedo bombers, they went in low, because they had a different type of letting go of their bombs than we did. And then we were the last ones to go down and drop our bombs, and then gather together and go home. Yeah, then we attacked Woley Eye on the 1st of April, and I don't know why it took us so long, but then then next 2 attacks were on Hollandia on the 21st and 1st. And then we supported troop landings on Hollandia on the 22nd. We attacked Wakti, which is also known as Vandemar. That was on the 23rd. Then we went on a 200-mile search for the Jap fleet. I think my pilot, Jack Weber, was very good with mathematics and everything, because most of the fellas, they would have short flights, watching out for submarines, and they never had a long flight. So he got us out there, and he got us back.
What was the range of a Helldiver? Do you recall what kind of range you had?
No, all I could tell you is the duration of the 2-mile search took us 3 hours and 3.6. Then the next plate where we attacked 3 days in a row was Truk. That was a very Japanese liked it because that's where they had their supplies and everything else. And it would have been a very dangerous place to ever have the Marines or the soldiers, the Army, go in there, because it was just like a rock. I mean, it was nothing smooth. In fact, a lot of times it was cloudy, and we couldn't dive bomb, and we would have to circle, go like this till we came below the clouds, and then from the mountain they were firing down at us. I'd see the blasts from their guns instead of us dropping bombs, you know. And in fact, one of my best friends, he got killed by, he was a real character. Instead of just being positive, you know, down like this, he would stand up in the cockpit. Well, we come out of the dives this one time, and I just see he had a baldy head on himself, and it's laying against his seat. So I'm glad I wasn't on the other side, because there was always 3 of us, because he must have been messed on the other side. And I think we had the funeral a few days later, and it's the only time I ever witnessed a burial at sea. But he was some nice kid.
So, how many missions did you fly altogether?
I would say 46. They include the long-distance ones because of the danger. Now, my friend, I generally don't like to mention the names, but he was from he was right around our area here. I can't think of the school he went to, but he and his pilot went out on a flight, and they only had one they only had one pilot. I mean, the fighter pilot. He was their only help. And the last thing we heard on the screens was 8 bogeys, and that was the end of them. So the next day we're on a flight like that, and they decided they would give us 2 fighters, 2 escorters. Well, we get up in the air and we're all by ourselves. So, fortunately, well, they had sent us one way and one of our other guys the other way. Well, the other fellows had the 2 planes. We were supposed to have 2, but they couldn't take off, you know, certain engine trouble. So fortunately, one of the fighter pilots came over and was with us. Now, let's see, it's just at the time that that was about, okay. In May we hardly did anything. then in June, we had attacks on Tinian, and attacked Guam and Rota, and then we attacked Saipan, then Guam again, and then a 325-mile search for the Jap fleet. Now, we ourselves did not see the Jap fleet, but I think it was somebody from the Essex, one of the other carriers. They did, but they weren't able to reach anybody, except we were close enough to their radio that we knew what was going on. So we were never supposed to touch our radio unless an emergency. So all of a sudden, and the only time I ever used it was in practice. So all of a sudden my pilot says, "John, open up the radio." So I says, "Well, here goes. When am I going to get that dial right where it has to be," and so forth. Fortunately, I did, and he radioed everything the Essex guy said back to our fleet. And so that was a break for us. And I don't think we did send out planes that day. I think it was too far away. Then we were in the Philippines a lot, and on Negros, we're just starting our descent our pilot is with it, and a Japanese plane took off from the field, and he shot them down immediately. It was a kill for him. Hitting the planes on the ground, that doesn't count. You had to have them in the air. So, and a little while later, after we pulled out a dive and so forth, he also sunk a destroyer escort on the same flight. He got a ship to his credit, and he got a. Okay, then we went on to the supporting. Cebu with the Philippine Islands, and then we supported 2 landings at Anguar, also near Palau. And
all this time you were still based on the carrier. You didn't fly from any land fields at all?
No.
You were always from the carrier?
I think one time we had to deliver something to, well, like we would be at Kwajalein, Atoll, and a few Guam after we knocked Guam, where it was safe for us to fly from. He had to deliver some message, and we did go to some island, and I guess they didn't want to do radio because it had to have been black and white. So that was about the only time that we ever landed on land.
Was your aircraft ever damaged?
Only you're on the okay. That was when somehow or other intelligence let our ship know that there was a lot of ships. Let's see where that is. I'm getting ahead of myself. There was another 300-mile search for the fleet, which was, and here we just had the lone fighter with us. And I forget how far we were out, and pilot told me there's a Jap plane coming, so we always flew open cockpit, except on long flights, because we wanted to conserve. So I quick do the hatchback and got ready to see what I could do. But in the meantime, the one fighter pilot we had, he shot, Lieutenant J.G. DeGolia shot down 2 diners. He got the first one, and I could see the guys, and they were in reconnaissance too, because I could see the 3, they had 3 men, and they were already on fire, and I watched them crash into the ocean. And then a little while later, another one came along, and he took care of that one the same way. So we didn't get hurt at all. That went too far. No, because I did get, okay, I think I have down here. This is on September 24th. Attacked Guam, Calamian Group, Philippine Islands ships. Our intelligence found out about these ships anchored on the island. Our group, led by Lieutenant Les Ward, headed for Guam. We were flying fairly low to come upon, when we came upon the Jack cruiser. I don't know if it was a cruiser or a battleship, but our fighters who were, were going to protect us, well, they stayed there, and they took care of that warship. So no, we're just by ourselves. We continued our destination. We spotted the ships and came in what we call masthead bombing. It's the only time we ever used it, where we were maybe 100 feet above the water line. It's called masthead bombing. There were probably eight of us planes. We came in low, dropped our bombs on the ships with a 5-second delay after the bomb exploded. In other words, if we just dropped the bomb immediately, we would get hit by our own bomb. So I think it was a 5-second, might a few more. I strafed at least three ships from stem to stern with my .30 caliber twin 30s, and my tracers hit them on mark. All of a sudden, I feel a burn in the back of my neck, and turned around immediately and watched our right aileron on my left wing go to smithereens. I thought I was hit in the back of my neck also. My pilot was able to fly our plane back to the Bunker Hill. Of course, the other planes were with us. None of our other planes were hit. We were allowed to land on a carrier first. Anytime a plane was a little, probably with them, they could go first, otherwise you had to go on your routine. We landed, and a pharmacist mate wanted to know if I was hit. He had me go direct to sick bay for treatment. The wound was that one of my empty but hot shells landed in the back of my collar and burnt my skin. The doctor called me down to see him a few days later, told me I was entitled to the Purple Heart. I said, no thanks. I told him one of my buddies is in sick bay because his pilot flew too low when releasing the bomb, and it came and through the fuselage and shattered his knee. This was not the same. This was a different, it was just that pilot went down too low before he let the bomb go. And so that's, I didn't want a Purple Heart for something like that.
So I think that in your log, I thought you ditched at sea once?
Yeah. Now, I still didn't know if that was run out of gas or it was the engine itself sputtering, because we needed a change of planes, and we weren't getting them. And when our planes were taking off, if I was on the catwalk and I would watch them taking off, well, instead of the engine going up like this, you wouldn't see them anymore, because they practically went down to water level and then came up. So after that, they started putting us on a catapult, because at least you would get airborne right away. The only thing they used to say now, keep your head right there, don't, because you went from nothing to out, yeah. And it was scary, because the planes just weren't acting up, and the mechanics were doing everything they could, and we still weren't getting new planes. And then I'm probably skipping something, but finally we're all set to we're either Quadrillion or any what we talked at the time, but we have to go out action again. And all of a sudden we're told our planes are in. So they had to fly all our, or get them by boat to the baby carrier that brought the new planes in. And they just took our planes and just let them go, throw them into the sea.
So they just pushed the old ones
Pushed
over
them
the
off.
side?
Yeah, there was no chance to try to get them, fly them. We had to get the new ones, and what a difference it was. I mean, it was, once again, well, it was so bad that the TBFs, they were flying faster than we could when we went out on missions. Until we got the new planes, and everything turned out very well.
But you did have to ditch at sea once. Was that in one
Yeah.
of the old ones?
No,
or the-
no. We were coming in for a landing. We were ready to land. We were in the system, you know, and all of a sudden it's hear the sputtering, and he said, we're going to make a water landing. Happened to a lot of other guys, so I wasn't the only one that made water landings. And all I was interested in was, well, we hit the water nice. I got the boat, you know, that blow, you know, blow
the
up.
rubber raft?
Yeah, the rubber raft. Of course, that was right in front of me. I got that out, threw it out in the wing, got in, and fortunately, the fleet was close by, because we were coming, so a destroyer came along quite a distance from us and fired a rope out to us, which they missed by quite a bit, which means he had to go all the way around again, you know. So the next time, the same thing happens. But I said, I'm not waiting for that to go around again, so I jumped into the water. I swam to the rope, got it, and gave it to the pilot to hold. I didn't bother getting back into the raft, which was stupid here, because this was off Guam, and not that that meant anything, but I found out later, where we water landed, the ocean there was 5 miles deep. So it was the deepest. That had nothing to do with that. But anyhow, when we finally pulled up to the destroyer, the captain of the destroyer says, let the man in the water up first. Well, I thought, at the time, oh, that's nice, instead of course, my pilot's, he's sitting in the balloon, you know. What it was, they were afraid of sharks. I never gave sharks a thought, you know. But
How long was it before your planes went under? Did you?
Probably 2 minutes, something like that. We were away from it, you know, when it finally went under. Now, other fellas that went on the destroyers like that, when something like that would happen, they stayed on the destroyer then until there was another going wherever we're going to get by, you know. So, as I said, oh, this is great, because even one of the officers said, hey, the guys are going to want to trade things, you know, with you and things like that, you know, for souvenirs.
Mhm.
Well, one of them wanted my 45, and I says, well, I'm not giving out the 45. He says, back when the war's over, somebody's going to find that 45 that killed somebody and put the numbers on it. So I said, I'm keeping the 45 to myself. Well, instead of getting a break, all of a sudden they say, stand by, we're going to come across the Bunker Hill, and they threw the bosun's weight down to us, so we both got in, well, he got in one and I got in the other one, but what got me was they put all, he took his board out, he had everything with him when we got into that raft, and we get put on the Bunker Hill, and we always went in threes, you know, in other words, this group, and they'd come back, and so we were the third group. Well, when the guys came back from the second group, and they told them, hey, Derrenbacher and Weber, they were in a destroyer, and they're back on the ship again, you know. They wouldn't, no, that would never happen again, but it did. The very next day, when we were flying again.
So, where were you at the end of the war?
I was in, first of all, I took a test to see if I could make it for going to aviation school, you know, and I passed that, and they sent me and a few others to William Jewell College in Missouri, and it was like a year course, a freshman course, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But they figured, hey, you guys have been out of school so long, so that was nice duty, just being in there, and it was near, you know, that's beside the point, and well, that's where Truman lived at that time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And oh, and then I went to pre-flight school at the University of Iowa and completed that. And then I was going to go for school right down. Of course, the war's over now.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to school, and oh, the war's over. I said, hey, I'm not going to get to be a pilot now anyhow. So I had the points, and I got out.
Okay. Do you recall your reaction when you heard about the dropping of the atomic bombs?
Well, we were still in service. I thought when that happened. Yeah. In fact, I'm not sure, but the pilot that, you know, dropped that bomb, I was sure I saw him, I don't know if it was a railroad station or what, but I didn't have the guts to go up and say, hey, you know, because in case it wasn't him, but I think it was, but that's beside the point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you remember your reaction when you heard about that?
Well, we were glad about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you still felt sorry for the Japanese that were not involved in the war, but just like the terrible thing that's happening now from 9/11.
When were you discharged?
August, no, within August. It's on my paper down here.
Well, okay, in January of 46.
Yeah,
January 21st.
from Lido Beach.
Yes, okay. Did you ever join any veterans organizations?
I had joined the, I didn't join the American Legion, the other one.
VFW?
VFW, yeah. But I only lasted a year there because the salary I was getting at my job and already having a kid, I couldn't, so I didn't join then I joined the American Legion when we moved to Poughkeepsie. But
Did you ever make use of the GI Bill?
only once, and I cannot recall. But
How about the 5220 Club?
I know I didn't take that. No.
Did you ever stay in contact with anyone that was in service with you?
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
George Armstrong, Mel Paparian, quite a few. And then I did go to ship reunions, and I also went to bombing squadron reunions.
Okay. How do you think your time in the service changed or affected your life? Do you think it had any change or effect on it?
It had to. Definitely it had to. I mean, I had hoped, like a lot of other people, that would be the last war. But once again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ken.
You know, these were the torpedo bombers. So we lost quite a few there.
We'll make a copy of that. Okay.
Oh, you mean to, you know, think what had happened and all.
Now, when was this photograph taken, and where are you in the photograph? If you could just hold it up.
Okay, well, that's me right here. And I was in boot camp.
Where were you, in the center?
Yes, right here.
Okay.
Now, was that in Rhode Island?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Got it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Now, can we have these pictures?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
Oh, shoot.
Intrepid
I don't
was.
think I got it. I think it was on standby. Let's try that again, just in case. Okay, that's his airplane, and these are some of the crew. And the name of the plane was the Beast.
Well, that's what you
Nickname.
called them.
The nickname.
Right, okay.
Now, did you ever, like the pilots in the European theater, did you guys ever decorate your jackets or anything like that at all?
No.
Wear any kind, did you have a unit patch at all?
No.
No? Never decorated the planes or anything
Oh,
like
yeah. Like, I was going with Kathy at the time, and I would get a piece of chalk and write on the bomb, "This is for Kathy," you know, and things like that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.